Complete Red Vixen Adventures is a series of novellas following the Darktail family written by Royce Day. Recommended to me by the author after reading some of his work in The Swordmaster's Tale, I decided to give this a try. Taking place in his own created universe, the story is centered around the Darktail family and their entanglements with the rogue pirate, the Red Vixen, as well as others within the story universe. The primary characters of the series are Lord Rollis Darktail and his sister, the Lady Sveryud Darktail, and the eponymous Red Vixen, a pirate and one of the most infamous individuals in the sector. Joining the series with the later installments are Alinadar and Lou Blacksailor. I really enjoyed the entire cast. Royce manages to deliver an assortment of fun and varied personalities that work well together, and manage to hit all the right notes every time they interact. An enjoyable group, they may not be your typical protagonists, but they are every bit as unforgettable. The Red Vixen Adventures is a series of sci-fi stories set in an ever-expanding universe. I'd read a little bit of Royce's work before in a short story collection, so I was interested to check out this collection of his novellas. For me, a newcomer to the series, I was looking forward to seeing exactly what he had to offer, and for the most part, I'd say I was satisfied. The first novella begins shortly after his ship is boarded by the infamous Red Vixen. She captures him and takes him hostage, along with the rest of his cargo. During his captivity, he explains his story, and things get complicated when his family declines to pay the ransom, leaving her in a situation she has never been in before. Now, with a prisoner she doesn't want, and he with few options, they must figure out a way forward together. I don't know for certain, but I think I recall hearing this was one of his early works. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I do see some signs of it. Some folks, they say you can see it in a lot of their early pieces. That may be true of my first book as well. But the better the author, the less clear that is to the analytical observer. Now, while I must point out there is the occasional missing or unusual word indicating perhaps a change of mind in mid-sentence, by and large, it is possible to figure out what was meant by context. Not a deal-breaker, but usually worth noting. The characterization was really good, with Lord Rollis Darktail, the Red Vixen, and Sally all coming across really clearly. Their interactions were entertaining and natural feeling, and at no point did I feel like any of them didn't add to the story. I must also credit the author for doing a really good job on the portrayal of abuse and mental health, especially given the time this must have been written, so major kudos there. The universe is well established with a lot of the details delivered as the story progresses, and I thought it fit really well with the rest of the narrative. Definitely would recommend. The only issue I had with the first installment was the ending, which, while competently written and well done, was a little bit predictable, at least to me. Now, while I acknowledge that this was a novella and maybe their first work, and that I tend to analyze stories deeper than your average reader, I feel, as a story aficionado, I must say that I saw the twist coming well in advance for this one. After Rollis is rescued, a vixen we have never met before pays his ransom, and he starts to fall in love with her. Although she provides an explanation, perhaps this is just my cynicism speaking, but I am immediately suspect. This would have been offset if we had seen her earlier, or if we had known they were family friends. But without that, it is unlikely a person would do what she does without having a personal reason, and given that we are offered no other candidates either as red herrings or additional obfuscation, it is clear early on that she is the Red Vixen, and when her identity was confirmed, I had already suspected much sooner. The second novella in the collection, Shadow, centers around Rollis' sister Sally. Following the events of Captive, she has chosen to take her first trip in a long time to the human homeworld of Earth. As a condition of her family's approval, Rollis insists she have a chaperone, and she is assigned a fellow foxen named Alinadar. But there is more going on than meets the eye, as Alinadar answers to a mysterious mistress. Much of the early part of the novella covers their trip to Earth aboard a passenger liner, and I would definitely say that I enjoyed the chemistry between the two. Sally, still recovering from her years of abuse under her ex-husband, and Alinadar, who has been assigned her protector, mesh very well. I'd like to commend Royce on his rather nuanced portrayal of mental health and post-traumatic stress, which expertly broaches the subject to the audience, as well as gives characterization to Sally herself. I'd say that both Sally and Alinadar have a lot of baggage they're carrying with them, and in many ways I think they complete each other. Whether this was intended that way or not, I can't say, but it also comes across as a very solid platonic relationship. I appreciate Royce's restraint in not automatically making them a couple, as some might be tempted to do, but also for handling both of their backgrounds with skill. I kind of feel bad Sally didn't get to see much more of Earth, but it definitely will turn out to be a memorable trip. The conclusion, while perhaps I should have seen some of it coming, was well done, though I blame my failure to anticipate some things on my expectations of what kind of story I would have pictured it to be in my head. But it all made sense when I saw how it wrapped up. Overall, I'd say that Shadow was definitely much more smooth than the first one, and the ending felt appropriate, in some places rather humorous. Although while initially I had what I thought were some things that I might have marked as wishlist items upon reflection, I think this story was exactly what it needed to be. It was fun, a good character study, and really just a very entertaining read. I'd find it tough to say which one I'd enjoyed more so far, but another strong recommend in the collection. The third story in the collection, we follow Captain Marty Greycoat, a pilot hired to escort one of the House Highglider trading ships through space. Unfortunately for him, his patron ships have been targeted by the infamous Red Vixen, who has been plundering their ships for fun and profit. Once again, Royce manages to capture a different narrative voice for Captain Marty Greycoat, a lovable asshole who seems a bit more confident in his own skills than perhaps is appropriate, but he is quite endearing and entertaining as a narrator as he gets into his latest spat of an adventure. I found his internal monologue to be especially amusing, not to mention his numerous attempts to try and talk, sneak, and con his way out of trouble. Yet, like one of those characters that is always the victim of something or other, he just can't stay out of it. Filling in some gaps, as well as some background information for things mentioned but not shown in the second story, it provides a unique and entertaining narrative as the latest installment in the Darktail family saga. With enjoyable dialogue and amusing parallels to the first story, it is a wonderful addition to the mythology. The fourth installment in the Red Vixen Adventures, this story begins with the arrival of an Allied Worlds patrol officer to begin setup of a local office. What follows is a surprising family reunion, some drama, and a little bit of excitement. Once again, I find it hard to believe this wasn't a bit more pre-planned, but maybe it just further reinforces that if you have a good setting and interesting, well-developed characters, the stories almost write themselves. By this time, I'd have to say that I consider myself a fan of these characters that I've had no idea who they were a few months ago. The chemistry is great, the dialogue made me smile at the appropriate times, and I just enjoyed the whole ride. It kept me on my hooves as I was following each development, and especially at the scene when Alinadar realizes the truth of her relationship with Commander Black Sailor really just nailed this story for me. It was well written, enjoyable, and kept me eager for the next page. The finale, I can tell you, had me having to pause a moment, much like the protagonist herself, before I found out what happened next. The new characters were great, with most of them being just background, but the few that had enough of a presence to warrant names were welcome additions to the overall universe, and I definitely like the family feel they give me in their interactions. Each story just keeps getting better and better, and I really can't wait to dive into the next piece of this highly entertaining series. The fifth installment in the Red Vixen Adventures, it continues after the events of the last one, seeing Sally and Alinadar returning to Foxen Prime to get her cybernetic eye replaced. But no visit home would be complete without some family drama, a mystery, and consequences go with it. Immediately, things get complicated, with her mother being displeased with her choice of lover, and Alinadar, having her first real opportunity to meet some of her new family members, runs into trouble due to scars of her past, creating what I would describe as an unfortunate situation. Sally attends a party, one of her duties as a member of a noble house, and things just get more complicated from there. I really enjoyed this one. It kept me guessing throughout the entire story what was going to happen next. I must admit the final suspect had passed into my line of consideration, but I had dismissed them only to find out I'd done so too hastily. As tends to be the case, the new characters caught my attention, making me want to see more of them in future adventures, and enjoying both the character interactions and the mystery of sorts that the story contained. I'd say that one of the strengths of CRVA is that it, as a series, seems capable of taking on multiple genres and doing them well, with some focusing more on action and others more on the slow burn of a good mystery. The characters are compelling, with all of them capturing my attention and making me look some at my own previous assumptions in new ways. Overall, I still think number 4 was my favorite, but any time I can spend with these characters is an uncontested delight. It was also enjoyable that the author is a friend of mine, and I was able to send my thoughts and comments as I went along. Also, I must point out that the ending couple of scenes was positively delightful, with some long-standing plot points finally becoming known to the other characters, and one of those things that for a series that is not planned in advance really makes it feel like it was. A short piece at the end of the book. It is a similar length perhaps to I Fought the Claw. I would say that overall it was short and sweet, written by the author to address some outstanding issues. Rollis and Melanie go out sailing to work out some of their marital troubles, but they are shipwrecked during a storm and must find a way to survive until help can be summoned. Yet another gem from Royce Day, it is the first story to focus on Rollis and Melanie since the first, giving them some much needed time in the spotlight. It was a great character study of these two with some distance between them, as we all know that relationships change quite a bit after marriage, and these two had a lot to talk about. Add in a little bit of sci-fi danger and a bout of amnesia, and you have a recipe for a textbook adventure with the Red Vixen. Left to account for most of her history pre-Rollis, they finally talk about their respective pasts, getting everything out into the open. The two of them have a lot to work out, but their discussions are complicated by the presence of an alien that seeks to add them to its collection. I thought the character chemistry was great, the development added more to both their individual characters and their collective relationships, and there was a lot to enjoy here. My only complaint is that it wasn't longer, but it did fill in some things for me, having read a story that takes place after this, though it was not essential for me to enjoy the latter. As a collection, it was a fantastic series that I tremendously enjoyed, and look forward to letting some time pass so I could read it all over again. If you like werewolves, check out my book Blue Moon, available in paperback and ebook on Amazon. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. Catch you later.